there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and I'm going to be hanging out with you for a couple of hours or so, I'd assume. I think that's a safe bet to talk about professional wrestling. Keep you all up to speed on the latest, newest, and freshest things going on in the crazy world of pro wrestling right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. Now, as opposed to what I usually do, I record typically live on Tuesday nights. This is not a live recording of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Life happens, stuff happens. I had to do some finagling to get some scheduling done and whatnot, but this is not live. I'm recording this actually on Monday, on February 6th, despite the fact that this is showing up on YouTube and on your audio podcast feeds on the 7th, just so that, we can keep the rhythm going, just to make sure that, it's like that nice cozy spot that you've saved for me on Tuesday nights. It doesn't get taken away, doesn't get shifted away by anything else. I want to hang on to it. I want an exclusivity on that cozy spot that you leave for me. I don't want anyone else, horning in on my racket, Oh, you just get into a rhythm and you're like, you know what? I have time to do this on Monday. So we'll do it. And if you're watching this as a live premiere, or let's just call it a premiere. It's not a live premiere. If you're watching this as a premiere on YouTube, well, you have the community right there chatting along, I'm sure. Hope everyone is having a good Tuesday. And if you're here already, well, listen, give the video a like. I'd appreciate a great deal right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. Or even consider subscribing to the channel. Why don't you? That kind of stuff helps the channel out tremendously. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, well, 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, 5-star ratings on Spotify. All that stuff helps out a great deal. It really does. Tiny little things that you can do that help grow the channel, help grow the show, help grow Mr. Warren Hayes into a behemoth. We're going to stop referring, someday we will stop referring to the Mr. Warren Hayes Show as the Juggernaut. When I say we, I mean me. And we're going to stop referring to the Mr. Warren Hayes Show as the Juggernaut and eventually as the Behemoth. But that only comes with exponential growth, ones that would defy nature and physics. But listen, I'm really glad you're here listening to this. Of course, friendly reminder to join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. It's a great place to hang out, to chat with like-minded people who enjoy pro wrestling as well. The link is in the description. And the door is always open. We would love to have you with us, so that's the thing. And of course, I will be back here on Thursday at some point for the Dynamite review. That is also getting impacted with the things happening around me this week. I had to do a little rescheduling on that, so the Dynamite review might not come out at the same time as usual, but it will be out on Thursday nonetheless. I will find some time to record it because I will have time to watch Dynamite. Everything's going to fall into place. Trust me. We're just the schedule, the routine is a little broken up, but I'm sure we can all live with that. Consider becoming a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel on YouTube as well. That way you will get access to our members only streams, which happen Fridays over lunchtime here on the Eastern Seaboard. With a little show I like to call Going Broadway, where we talk about all sorts of pro wrestling related goodness, just goodness about pro wrestling. And that also shows a little extra support for the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. And if you don't mind that, that's always very appreciated. But I'm very appreciative to have you here. We might as well just get right to it. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. The weekly wrestling inspection. So it's been about a week now, or a few days anyway, since WWE had its earnings call last week. Look, we've got a busy show, by the way. As per usual, there's a lot of reviews to do this week. There was an NXT show, NXT Vengeance Day, which we're going to get into, and we had two New Japan shows as well that I watched. the New Beginnings in Sapporo shows. Watch them both. So we're going to get into that. But just before, just a couple of little newsy bits here. And so, I think we're close to a week now at this point that the earnings reports have been put out, and we know that WWE is making gobs of money. So the idea here isn't necessarily for me to sit here and go like, okay, this is everything. I'm not going to break this down. Everyone who had to break this down has broken it down at this point in time. But for the record, for history, for posterity's sake, here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, let's just point out the very monetarily successful year of World Wrestling Entertainment. Revenue for the fourth quarter of 2022 was counted in at $325.3 million, which is an increase of 5%. Operating income was at $62.7 million, which is a decrease of 22%. Crown Jewel was the most viewed international event in WWE's history. This is something that they had already touted, that we already knew about, but they're still talking about it. And each domestic WWE Premium Live event, when we're talking specifically here about Extreme Rules and Survivor Series, which happened in Q4, was the most viewed event in its history, with year-over-year increases of 36% and 46% respectively in domestic unique viewership. We even broke down the business of the Royal Rumble with the members on the member stream this week, where they did tout that the Royal Rumble was the highest viewed pay-per-view of its PLE of the event's history, of course. Now, I don't want to, pee in anyone's cornflakes. I think piss cornflakes are probably, it's probably not very good. Just start off, cornflakes aren't really great. Like who legitimately sits down in front of a bowl of cornflakes and goes, yum, cornflakes. Like, cornflakes are fine, don't get me wrong. But like, who sits down and goes, I got a hankering for some cornflakes. Like, I just want to, we need to nuance this a little bit. Because I can understand why someone might sit down and see, a good old fashioned bowl of cornflakes can act as some token comfort food, maybe. It's just like something that it's very wholesome and it makes you feel good inside. I can understand that, but between us all here, cornflakes are kind of shit. It's kind of a bad cereal. It's very light. Gets soggy in milk like in the blink of an eye. You have to, it's basically a sprint to try and finish a bowl before it all gets mushy. And it leaves you sort of feeling, I always feel a little hungry after having cornflakes. Not as bad as Cheerios though. And I think Cheerios are the biggest racket when it comes to, quote unquote, health cereals, that are supposed to be good for you. I think it's the biggest racket, because there was a time where I would eat Cheerios systematically in the morning, and I swear to God, like at 9:30, I wouldn't even make it to 10 a.m., excuse me, to 10 p.m. That'd be another story, but I wouldn't have made it to 10 a.m. without getting hungry, like legitimately hungry, not like I could use a snack right now. No, like it's like I am ready for a meal, and yet I had a big bowl of these Cheerios, which are supposed to be like full grains, like real, if they're using like full grains, it's supposed to be sustenance, right? It's supposed to sustain you, not make you hungry. Cheerios are empty. It's terrible. Like, as far as the healthy breakfast cereal racket goes, Cheerios are the worst. They are absolutely the worst. They just cannot sustain you energy-wise, hunger-wise for an entire morning, it's bullshit. So, if you were to pit me in a situation where it's like you have to pick, cornflakes or Cheerios, well, I'll just, I'll do a sprint and I'll eat the cornflakes. But the point is that cornflakes are terrible. And if I were to urinate in them as well, like that's just a sad situation. It's just a terrible thing. And I feel, it's like, look, you're already eating cornflakes. I already feel bad for you. Why would if I were to urinate into your cornflakes, that's like insult to injury. It's just like punching someone while they're down. What the hell were we talking about? Oh yeah. So we were okay. So the WWE's talking about how their viewership is going up, right? It's been 36% higher, 46% higher. And again, I don't want to tread on some on some uneven ground here. Let's put it that way, or some ground that people might be like, Warren, of course. But subscriptions to Peacock have been year over year. They've doubled. So if anything, you should be like, yes, it should. And the viewership number, and I'm going to hammer this home till the end of time. The viewership numbers, right? Talking about percentages rising, and I think it was reported that the Royal Rumble did 2 million viewers. What is a view? What counts as a view on a streaming service? At what point is a view? At what point is a view accounted for? When is that total? When is it added to the thing, right? To the meter. Because like on YouTube, a view is 30 seconds. On Facebook, it's like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, something super short like that. What is a view? Nielsen tracks streaming services and for programming, and it is 2 minutes until they consider a view. So the question is, the ultimate question is, these numbers seem impressive, but they are not in context. Like if you had 1 view on your podcast last week, let's say, for instance, hypothetical. And then suddenly the next week you had 36. And it's like, okay, well, I had that's not quite how it works, right? It's not a 30. I get 1.36 viewers. Get a 36% increase, right? It's still not impressive in that context. So what is 36? What is 36%? What is 46%? 46% of what? It doesn't necessarily mean that it is an impressive number. And the most interesting stat that we could get out of all of this, and unfortunately we don't have access to it, and we probably will never have access to it for very proprietary reasons. The most interesting statistic that we could get out of all of this is the time watched, or the percentage of watch time. So if you have 2 million people watching a 3-hour show, then that gives you an idea of how your watch time, total watch time, should give you an idea of how many people stuck to the very end, right? You could extrapolate percentages then. Because if you're running an event on TV, a live event, and let's say 90% of your viewers stayed, the total viewership time is 90% of your total, right? Like, all right, that's great. That's a success. If it's 70%, that's a success. 50% is even great. If it's 20%, it's not looking that great. Because if all you need to calculate a view is a 2-minute watch, and then 30 minutes in, you're like, this shit sucks, I'm going to watch Yellowstone, well, your view still counts. But that doesn't mean that it's not a significant number. It's not something that is truly compelling as far as stats go. I think it's kind of bad. It doesn't mean anything. It's an empty stat because we have nothing to bounce it off of. And of course, the viewership on Peacock, the number of subscribers on Peacock is much higher than any pay-per-view that WWE has ever put on. As far as people who bought the pay-per-views, much higher than the subscriber base on the network back in the day. So of course the numbers are all going to be higher. They should be. People are not paying specifically for WWE anymore. It's included in their package where they can watch Yellowstone. You know, I'm not quite sure what the entire offer is on Peacock. I apologize. But that's the thing. So they're going around saying, oh, it's the biggest. Sure, it should be. You know what I mean? It has to be. So it's hard to be impressed, you know? Whereas if you have a pay-per-view number and you drop it, you go, here you go. This is the total amount of views that were purchased, as opposed to Royal Rumble 2014, 2015, you're like, oh, wow. I mean, we have nothing to go on. We just have nothing to go on. Full year 22 highlights really quickly. Revenue increased 18% overall. WWE made $1.3 billion in the year of our Lord, 2023. It is, of course, the highest in the company's history. Operating income was increased to 11% for a record $2.83 million, making money in the most obscene ways. That's a lot of money. Of course, all of this is happening under the specter of a sale, under the specter of Vince McMahon and all the palace intrigue. I like that expression. That's how I'm going to refer to it moving forward. The palace intrigue happening backstage at the higher echelons of World Wrestling Entertainment. During the ratings call last week, there were a couple of very notable comments outside of, all of the talk about the numbers. There was specifically, someone asking Triple H about, how he feels about having Vince back. So it's great having Vince back on the board. It's great. It's just great. It's such a great place and great. And I'm like, Just a little over a month ago, you co-signed a letter saying you do not want Vince back, and now you're on this call and you're saying, oh no, Vince is great at this. Look, not that I was expecting Triple H to bury Vince, or it's like, well, it's been hard to adapt with Vince's return. Like this is a show they're putting on for investors, to make sure that the investors know that, everything's fine. Don't worry. Things look chaotic, but everything is fine. Look, united front, so on and so forth. Oh, we're so happy for Vince to be back. It was an interesting quote. Nick Khan was quite quotable last week, to be honest. On the call, he took a question from Brandon Ross from Lightshed Services, who actually he's in the know as far as everything that's been happening, with the the palace intrigue, if we want to keep calling it that, because I kind of like it. I think it's cool. He asked this question to Nick Khan. Taking in the strategic alternatives, I think the potential buyer universe is probably going to be impacted by Vince's desire to remain after a sale or not. Nick, can you tell investors with certainty that Vince will be willing to end his involvement with WWE following a transaction if that gives shareholders the most value. Nick took a pause and answered, yes, without question. He's declared to the board, he's declared it to us in management, it's all about shareholder value. That's fine. Again, like I'm not expecting Nick Khan, again, in this context to go, great question, Brandon. I don't know what's going on in Vince's mind. Like, whatever. But then look, here's the thing, is that a couple of days later after the call, if you paid attention to that quote there, Nick was very, very certain, right? He just came out and said, yes, without question. He's declared to the board, and it's all about shareholder value, right? That's essentially what he answered. But then he does an interview with CNBC a couple of days later, and I think this was Friday or something like that, on the 3rd, February 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. And, the big quote that came out of it and everyone got excited about is like, oh, WWE, he was asked, well, when do you expect to sell? Do you think it's going to move fast? He said, oh, it's going to move quickly, like in about, 3 months or so. Which is fine. They want to clearly, 3 months or so means, by the end of next quarter, they want out of this. Okay, that's fine. And everyone's like, oh, WWE is going to sell in 3 months. That's not necessarily what this means. This means that Nick sees an expedited execution of the thing, but it doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen in 3 months. And to me, that's not even the most interesting thing that was said in this interview. I think a lot of people, I think it flew under the radar of a lot of people here because he was asked outright by, I think it was David Faber from CNBC. He was asked outright, if Vince were to step away, he was basically asked the same question, right? He asked him essentially, would Vince step away from the company because he keeps saying that it's about shareholder value? Would he step away if the right deal was hit? And the verbiage that Nick used here is a little different from the one he used at the earnings call. Here's what Nick responded to the question. He said, Vince has declared to the board he's 100% open to transactions where he's not included in the company moving forward if it's the right deal. And we will take a look at all the factors that make it the right deal. Now this is twisty, turny, exceptionally guarded language is what this is. Vince declared to the board that he's 100% open to transactions where he's not included in the company moving forward. He's 100% open to it. Now, this is in contrast to what he was saying on Tuesday wasn't it on Tuesday? Anyway, at the earnings call, he was saying, yes, without question, Vince would leave. But here he's saying, oh, he's open. He's 100% open to transactions where he's not included in the company moving forward if it's the right deal. Now, what constitutes a right deal? I think at this point, only Vince McMahon knows because Vince McMahon is still the controlling shareholder of the company. So it's whatever suits Vince. To me, this verbiage is very, very interesting, much more impactful than what was being talked about before. We will take a look at all the factors and make sure it's the right deal. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there clinging to the fact that, no, you know what, Vince, he's not involved. He doesn't want to get involved. He said he just wants to be here for the sale. Why would Vince unretire himself to return to the company and lead it through a sale if he didn't have plans for himself? Why would Vince McMahon think about it? This is the thing that I wish more people would focus on. Why would Vince McMahon be like, yeah, you know what? I'm good. I'm just going to come in, sell the company, and then leave. Sure, he's the controlling shareholder and he wants to make sure he gets a whole bunch of money, but that could have been done with him or not. I'm sorry to say, I still cannot see a situation like this one here where Vince is not trying to put himself back in a position of authority in his company, where he's trying to take it back. Where he's like, you know what? Taking it public was a mistake because I'm listening to all these people. Don't forget, this is something that was allegedly said by Vince in one of the Wall Street Journal reports. I believe the second one, when they were talking about his, it was the one, the one where it was speculated, where we found out that there were more NDAs, and then that he was potentially mounting a return, where he said, I feel like I listened to a lot of people and got some bad advice. And he wants to do things his way. He's always done things his way. Why would this change? And again, I don't see how any of this is being done, why Vince would be involved in this in any way, shape, or form, if it wasn't to reinsert himself back into his company. There might be something that we are just completely not seeing at this point. There could be something that is just 100% out of, completely out of our field of view right now, because it is obfuscated, because it's backdoor dealing, so on and so forth, whatever. Not backdoor dealing, excuse me, boardroom dealings. That's what I meant. We don't know. It could be things that we don't know, is my point. Because as it stands here, I still don't know what he has to gain by putting himself through all of this, engaging more scrutiny within his company, raising more questions. He's, the scandals have not been dismissed. They're not gone. They're still very present. There's still shareholder lawsuits popping up. And I know, a lot of people have been going crazy over these shareholder lawsuits, but guys, gals, non-binary pals, the shareholder lawsuits essentially exist to get more money out of the company for the shareholders because they felt they were wrong. These are not criminal proceedings. These are not things that are going to force Vince out. At the very least, if there is, I guess, more than enough, if there are more that start popping up, and that there's a pattern that's discerned, I guess maybe probably at some point the SEC can get involved. But until the feds get their nose in this, there's been rumblings that maybe they are, but we don't know if they are already involved. We don't know. But that's the only way that Vince will ever be faced with any true charges, as if the SEC gets involved. The shareholder lawsuits are there essentially to get more money for the shareholders, and that's pretty much it. Again, this is not done yet. Won't be done. We'll probably only get like the complete clear picture once this deal is done. And the more things are moving forward, the more I feel that Endeavor is going to be the group to do it. Nick Khan was talking about in the media, in the earnings call, he was talking about aligning themselves with a partner that had connections in media, in broadcast media. He did not talk about being with a broadcasting partner, which is different. That's what Endeavor does, right? Endeavor is not a broadcaster. Remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about the three we talked about the three avenues that existed for WWE. One of them was going with a partner that that has media contacts, but is not a broadcaster. Endeavor would be one of those. Who would be another one, right? Who would be another partner, right? We were talking about this Saudi Arabia. He said, Nick Khan outright said, he said, look, it takes someone, our partner needs to have more than just deep pockets, right? I think it was pretty clear what that was code for. Doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. Does not mean Nick Khan is not beholden to be telling us the entire truth here. He can, he has to keep things close to his vest because they're clearly in negotiations right now. So they can't be going around saying all sorts of things willy-nilly. But I think as we're moving forward here, it's either Endeavor, which was path number 2, or path number 3, which is going back private. And that might be maximum value for shareholders, right? Okay, let's move along here again very quickly just before we get into NXT Vengeance Day. A bit of news, right? Happened on February 1st, so towards the end of last week, where AEW announced that they were going to be hitting the live event circuit, the house show circuit, I should say, with a tour of house shows called House Rules. They had a nice little press release that was released. Let's listen. Let me read it off to you a little bit, if you don't mind. AEW CEO, GM, and head of creative Tony Khan today announced the launch of AEW House Rules, a live event series taking place on select weekends in markets across the country, continuing the promotion's meteoric rise and following the success of AEW Dynamite on Wednesdays on TBS and AEW Rampage on Fridays on TNT. Fans can expect an up-close and personal experience at local venues, along with a spectacular and engaging environment. So that's very interesting. These non-televised live events will showcase an electrifying mix of matchups featuring, I don't know why I'm stuttering so much, I apologize, featuring the stars of AEW. Each event offers an even more immersive experience for fans, including customized merchandise, unique ways to engage with featured talent, and in-show interactions different from what is featured on televised AEW programming. Now, I find this to be very interesting. An even more immersive experience for fans. Custom merchandise, which is interesting. I don't know exactly what that entails. And unique ways to engage with featured talent in different interactions during the show. Like, what does that mean exactly? We don't know. But look, we know that just comparing to the WWE's house show runs, right? The entire atmosphere with the talent, people performing at the shows is entirely different. Excuse me. Their attitudes are entirely different. Everything is smoother and looser because they're not running down a precise, like time to the second card where they have to, where it's not live TV, which is a lot more stressful and demanding, and you have to stick with your times and so on and so forth. So if this is all what they mean by, it's going to be different, of course, well, it should be different, right? Your talent should be then taking the time to celebrate with the audience, take selfies with people at ringside, all that shit. This is what house shows should do. That's what they're for. Continue the press release here. The first AEW House Rules show will take place. Excuse me. What is wrong? What is wrong? Is it because I don't have a live audience that I don't feel any pressure? Is this what we're doing here? The first AEW House Rules show will take place on Saturday, March 18 in Troy, Ohio at the Hobart Arena and will feature Ohio's own Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Dr. Britt Baker, Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, and many more. Tickets were already on sale, started on Friday. Future show dates will be announced in the coming weeks. So they're going all out. They're like, we're bringing out wrestlers you want to see, fan favorites. We've got Moxley, we've got Britt, Darby, Orange Cassidy, Claudio, right? All wrestlers that people are like, yeah, I'd love to see these people live, right? And all people who perform great in front of a live audience. So they're clearly giving it their best shot, right? I've said this before, I'll say it again. If AEW can afford to do house shows, they absolutely should. There is nothing but advantages to doing this, to going into smaller markets, putting out tickets at cheaper prices, allowing people to go see an AEW show without having to splurge the high amounts of dough that is an AEW show. Look, the tickets start at $20. See, and that feels a little more reasonable then to bring the kids, right? Take the family out, you bring the kids. It's like going to the movies at $20, $20 a person, right? That's about the thing, right? Of course, the floor seats and so on and so forth are more expensive. Of course they are. That's not the point here. The point is that you make these events a little more accessible, right? Creating goodwill in smaller towns, creating a bit of trying to re-grasp some of that grassroots feeling that AEW had and cultivated for itself when it started. AEW did not, sure, with Tony Khan and his dad, the Jaguar money backing him up, that sure as hell helped. But AEW was built on the desire, the willingness of fans to have an alternative, to have something else. And people were really freaking excited about this. And now if you go to smaller markets, you're not just going to the big towns, the big cities. You're going to, I don't even know where Troy, Ohio is. This is the first time I ever hear of Troy, Ohio. You see? Probably not a major metropolitan center. Why couldn't they get an AEW show like this? Right? And of course, there's all the advantages for talent, and I don't think I have to run those by you again. But it is, it's significant. Look, I think, what is it? It's Fightful this week, a couple of days ago, that said that they had spoken to some talent regarding the house show, and one talent specifically said that they would much rather get their reps in with the company as opposed to getting their reps out on the indies, right? Isn't that something to that effect? And I agree. Like, that's the thing. Like, we always hear it's like, well, we should send so-and-so on the indies and get some. But you don't, not all indies are created equal, and not all wrestlers out there on the indies are created equal either. So if on one side you have the likes of John Moxley and Chris Jericho who are coaching you through things, and then you go down on the independent circuit and you start picking up stuff down there that sort of doesn't quite coincide, or you pick up traits that then don't translate well on TV, and then, you sort of, it starts to supersede whatever teachings you're getting on your employer's side. Well, maybe at some point the employer's like, hey, you know what, we're just not going to do this anymore, Not to mention, the travel liabilities and the liabilities of getting injured on a show that isn't yours. I mean, these are all very logical things. It all makes sense. But the idea of the talent, trying stuff out away from cameras, just exploring, testing things out, wrestling other people, creating chemistry with other members of the roster, that's just as interesting and critical and good as well. And as I was listening, as I was thinking about this, I think the one thing that they have to be careful of, and I'm going to parrot a little bit the Voices of Wrestling fellas here, because it makes a lot of sense. The one thing that we have to consider here, for these to be successful, is I think AEW has to make them feel important, right? Look, right now, live events are going well. Like for WWE, their live taped events and even their house shows, it's going well overall. They're recording profit. They're recording profit, as where before the pandemic, live events were in the toilet. Outside of the big flagship events, the rest was, the house shows were notable money losers. So it wasn't really interesting for them to move on, right? But you could also argue that the reason that there was no real reason to go to a house show for WWE because WWE had stopped making them feel important. They didn't feel significant. You could absolutely miss a house show. It's not a big deal. Raw comes to your town, though. SmackDown comes to your town. Well, now all the stars will be there, and there's going to be significant, elements that are going to move forward here. But a house show? Why would you go to a house show? Because they never made them feel important. So the argument here, again, I'm parroting this. This is, the argument here, which makes a lot of sense, is if AEW wants to take advantage of this uptick in people still going out for live shows, we're still crawling out of the pandemic. People still want to go out and see, live concerts, live acts. They want to go back to the movies. They want, there's more stuff that they want to do. To that effect, they want to get back to having live entertainment before their eyes. So there's still this uptick in the live event business right now. So if AEW wants to take advantage of it while the getting's good, well, absolutely they should. But if they want this to be a long term, I think the danger that they're running is having their house shows feel unimportant. If you put on a match that, again, they said it would not be televised, just to make it clear, but if you have camera crews there just to pick up a few things and, there's an angle that runs at a house show. If they run an angle and then they put it on Dynamite, right? Oh, this thing happened because so-and-so attacked one at the show in Troy, Ohio. You're like, holy shit, had I been there, I would have, have a title change happen. Make these events feel special. And I think that will be to their advantage, because in the meantime, because if they treat their house shows like WWE does, they absolutely 100% run the risk of this failing out the gate. I'm very interested to see the economics of this, to see how this is going. The Troy, the Hobart Arena in Troy is not, it's not a basketball stadium. It's like 5,000 people capacity, right? I don't know what the setup is for a fight show, for a wrestling show, whatever. It's probably not going to be the full regalia and with the, all of the, it's not going to be the $500,000 production on Dynamite, right? You're not going to get the ramps. You're not going to get the screens and the full pyro and all that bullshit. It's going to be smaller and in every which way. It's still very interesting. I still think this is extremely, extremely interesting. But they got to be careful. They being AEW, they have to be careful because they can easily fall back into the traps that WWE did. However, I sit here and I tell you guys and gals and non-binary pals enough that there's there's more than one way to do pro wrestling. And just because WWE's been doing it this one way for 2 decades doesn't mean that it's the only way. And trust me, it is not the only way to do pro wrestling. So there are other ways to approach your house shows. There's other ways to do this. And it can benefit the business, their business, AEW's business. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right. Enough business talk. Let's talk about NXT Vengeance Day 2023. Don't call it a takeover. Jesus Christ, don't call it a takeover. This is a show that happened on February 4th at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. It is a big arena that was not open to capacity. I think they had about 5,500 tickets distributed for the show, which is pretty good. Like that, for what they had opened, they pretty much sold everything that they wanted to. I'm pretty sure they did a thing where it's like, well, we'll keep it small and open up areas as we keep going. But still, nonetheless, this was a box office success once again for WWE in a week of box office successes. Between the Royal Rumble and that, you got not much, a lot of good stuff here. Tickets were between $25 to $500 for this. So, not the most expensive wrestling show out there. These weren't Royal Rumble or Monday Night Raw tickets. When your floor tickets are $500, that's, I guess, pretty good in the context. So they got everyone that they needed to pack in there, and that's a good thing. The bad thing is that this was a bad show. This was a bad show. But we're gonna do the match by match thing. I'm gonna break it down. But I have to say from the get-go, right? As a casual WWE viewer, right? I don't catch NXT every week. So it's only when I get to the pay-per-views, the PLEs, the premium live events, where I am exposed to certain realities that face, the more hardcore NXT viewers, the ones that don't matter. I am a viewer that matters. I'm a casual viewer. I matter. So I'm not exposed to, certain things like the, commentary. And folks, Vic Joseph and Booker T, in my belief, right now, as a guy who watches a lot of wrestling, I believe they are the worst commentary team in wrestling. On a pro national scale, I don't think there is a worse commentary team than these two. And I tweeted it out, and it got quite a few responses. A lot of people agreeing with me, and a lot of people, shitting on Booker T. Booker's not good. He is a terrible color guy. He brings nothing. He just adds platitudes, cliches. He adds nothing. He really doesn't add any analysis. It's always it's about, he always boils everything back down to, in this business, you're not here to make friends, you're here to make money. That's essentially what it is. There's no chemistry between him and Vic Joseph. He's just terrible. He adds nothing. He brings nothing to this commentary table. And, in the same breath, a lot of people were responding to me. It's like, no, Booker's terrible. Poor Vic. Like, hang on a second. Let's pump the brakes here a little, a moment or two. Vic Joseph is not a good color guy. And for the amount of time that he's been at this, he should not be this rudimentary and basic, right? All he does is shout, ooh, Ooh, ah, tag. Like, that's all he does. That's his shtick. Planted. And he can't tell a story. He cannot guide the audience through a pro wrestling story. And I know what all you're saying is like, well, Warren, he explained very well that that JC Jane and Gigi Dolan were at odds with each other. They had some friction. That's not what a pro wrestling story is. What I'm talking about is what is going on in the ring, the nuances, the little things. He doesn't pick up on things unless they're ham-fisted. And you can see the wrestlers doing things. You can see the wrestlers doing little subtle things to show where they're going, and he doesn't pick up on them, or at least he doesn't mention them. And I can understand this is how he was brought up. This is WWE, right? You know, but Vic Joseph is this close to being a what a maneuver guy, because he doesn't call anything. He doesn't call any moves. Planted, lifted up, driven down. Ooh, oh. Oh! Tag! As if we can't tell with our two fucking eyes. Tag! 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 So I'm not excusing either of them. Either of them. I don't think they're good. I think they are terrible. When Vic was with Nigel, at least Nigel has the know-how, the expertise to be able to conduct Vic down a certain path and add on to whatever Vic was leaving on the table. Whatever Vic was just like completely oblivious to, Nigel was always capable to bring it back around, which is what a good color guy should do. Book can't even do that. These are two guys, they're two solitudes. They're two guys in each other's silos, and they're saying shit, they're seeing shit at each other, but not to each other. It's a bad commentary table. And I don't know if this is like the third or the fourth PLE in a row where this is starting to strike me, and this is the one where I'm like, no, they're bad, they're trash. They're no good. This is a bad commentary table. But this is an overall thing, right? Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The show opened up with the NXT North American title on the line. Wes Lee, champion, defeated Dominic Dijak. This match ruled. There's no two ways about it. This match was fantastic. Buckshot Rana by Wes Lee off the get-go, and I was like, okay, holy shit, we're off to the races here. Dijak lands a DVD on the floor. He suplex throws Wes Lee in the ring, then launches him to the floor, trains him a couple of times in the corner. Lee fights back. Starts drop kicking the leg, ends Zagurian German suplex with bridge. Lee lands a back body drop on the apron that Dijak barely hits. What a scary fucking spot that was. Dijak barely made the, but it was cool. And then he being Wes Lee, performs a flying space tiger drop, which I popped for. Poison Rana follows, package driver as well. Dijak choke slam, Wes Lee, then tries to choke him out. He does his best to put him away. Second rope powerbomb by Dijak is reversed midair by Lee into a head scissor. That's great stuff. On the floor, Dijak sits him with a chair, locks him in with a broom, right? Two guys come in to save Wes Lee. I don't know who these guys are. But then, I understand afterwards this is Tony D'Angelo and, the other guy who's not 10 dimes, 2 dimes, 7 dimes, what's his name is. Wes Lee hits his somersault Pele kick for the win. This ruled. It was very good. They were told by Shawn Michaels to go out there and tear the house down to get people excited for the card. Probably because Michaels knew that the rest of the card would be dragged down. At least let's do this. But look, I'm kidding, of course. But that was their objective. Go tear the house down, get the people excited, just like the takeovers of old. When you would start off with a crazy ass match that just get everyone up off their feet, and even when you didn't think the match would be great, it still turned out to be great. I am specifically thinking of Red Dragon versus Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch, if you want to remember that one. But look, this should come to no surprise to anyone that this match was absolutely phenomenal because of the quality of workers that were in this match. Both seasoned talent who are excellent at what they do, and the only reason why they haven't been shining more is because WWE Creative has been failing them, or failed them up until this point. Dominic Dijak has been with the company, since 2019? And they're finally doing something with him? Like that Retribution bullshit tanked him. God bless him for trying his best on social media to try to make chicken salad out of that pile of crap that he was given. And Wesley, Wesley with all with all the stuff with Zachary Wentz and all that, maybe he's been faring better. But you put two guys who are excellent at what they do and who've had the reps way before coming into WWE. You put them together and you say, guys, let's go. And they were selling this as the classic David versus Goliath. This was not it. This was not a classic David versus Goliath match that we got. It was maybe presented that way, but Wesley was not like fighting from beneath and trying to land chops and Dijak no selling. Like those matches that happen quite frequently in WWE when you have a smaller guy versus a bigger guy. Now they were on equal footing here. This ruled. Then things started to take a turn. NXT Women's Tag Team title match. Fallon Henley, Kiana James, they're a team. They defeated Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. They're your new champions. The Katana and Kaden get a lot of fast double team offense in. But Katana keeps getting ends up in pinning attempts, and she's always kicking out at one, to the point where I'm like, is this her gimmick? She's kicking out at one. Fallon Henley gets a clutch on her, and Katana Chance gets a hot tag. Kaden Carter, gets a hot tag. Pardon me. And this crowd is not into it. Big face wash kick sends him to the floor, flying crossbody. Got a spine buster by James. The baby faces fight back, but the heels get back in control with a spike Michinoku driver. Carter and Henley are on the top rope. Henley's on Carter's shoulders. Get a super Hurricane Rana, then that follows. Henley rolls up Carter. James holds the legs. New champs. Look, here's the thing. And this is one of the things that there's no flow to these matches. There's no flow to these matches. As much as the opener was just fluid and exciting and there was stuff happening, most of the rest of the evening there would be no flow to any of these matches. And this one was significant in how glitchy it was, I guess would be the word. Things happening and then As if everyone had ideas to put a match together, but you can't fill the in-betweens. They don't know how to fill from one spot to another. Not that they weren't working hard, but this had no heat. I don't know who any of these, well, that's not true. I know who Katana Chance and Caden Carter are. Fallon Henley and Kiana James. I believe Kiana James is the porn secretary, right? The thing that everyone goes, this was fine, but no heat. And just rough to watch. Carmelo Hayes defeated Apollo Crews in a best 2 out of 3 falls match. Pros. The match lasted 23 minutes. I'm like, okay, for a 2 out of 3 falls match, seems fair to me. It seems like an okay ballpark, because I was terrified this was going to last 15 minutes and we were going to get, 3 pinfalls in 15 minutes. Okay, I was very, 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 very anxious about it. But what we ended up getting here is a match where, hey, look, let's start by stating something that I'm a broken record on this. I've been saying this for years. I've been saying this back when I was doing reviews, still on Fightful. I don't know what I can say about Apollo Crews anymore. I was saying it years ago, constantly. His start-stop pushes have rendered this man completely uninteresting. He's talented. He knows how to do it. But there is no reason to get involved in this guy. There is nothing that WWE has done throughout his career since his departure from NXT way back then that would give you any reason to latch onto this guy and say, go Apollo. Despite the fact that every time, I think for 3 years straight, 3 to 4 years straight, every time there was a draft, Apollo was drafted to the other team, the other brand, and commentary would have the exact same story to say about him. Fresh start for Apollo Crews. Finally, he'll probably be able to stretch his legs here and truly show us what he's capable of doing, right? That was the thing every single time. And every single time, he'd just end up being a jabron, another guy in the roster, a guy losing to the upper tier guys every single time. So even when they did finally give him a character, the Ugandan, not the Nigerian prince thing, the Ugandan headhunter, that's another dude. that's another guy. No, in this case here, in the case of Apollo, when they did the gimmick with the Nigerian drum match and all that, that also turned into absolute nothing. Because then he was back immediately after, losing to everyone, but only this time he had a protege. He had a guy walking around with him, a bigger dude. So I don't know what to say about Apollo Crews anymore. There is nothing that I can latch on to. There is nothing for me that Apollo Crews has. I got nothing. Completely uninteresting. But on top of that, the main issue here, this match here made the cardinal sin of any form of entertainment, wrestling, film, music. The cardinal sin here was made. This match was dull, not bad, not terrible, not something that I can overtly sit here and laugh with you at how bad some of the spots were or whatever. Nothing we can even say so bad it's good. This was boring. And that is a sin. This match starts with some slow starts, some slow submissions, lots of stalling. I'm watching this and I'm like, are they going 30? Are they just taking their time? Because I was like, look, if they're going 30 with this, because it's a 2 out of 3 falls, that's good. That's good to me. And we get Apollo Crews anti-airing Carmelo Hayes with a drop kick. There's a backbreaker and a big German as well. But at this point, still early on in the match, there is so much start-stopping between the two. Like they do a couple of things and then they stop and they stare. And then they do a couple of things and they stop and they stare. And they keep doing it over and over. So much stalling and nothing is chaining. Nothing is chaining together. Meanwhile, I've got Booker T in my ear saying Apollo Crews has been at the top of the mountain. I'm like, Jesus. Booker, I know you're from Texas. I know, mountains aren't necessarily something that is, it's not the Rockies. You've probably never seen the Rockies. You've probably never seen the Swiss Alps. I don't know what you got there. Pretty sure Texas isn't known for its mountain ranges, its high mountain ranges. I don't know. Pretty low mountain if Apollo Crews has climbed to the top of that. Big moonsault off the apron by Apollo Crews. He goes for a stalling suplex and the crowd is dead. The crowd is dead. Stalling suplexes, they usually get a pop. No reaction. Commentary is 8 minutes into this match. This is what I'm telling you. They're 8 minutes into this match. And they're going, I can't believe there hasn't been a pin yet. And I'm like, Jesus, I can. Superplex by Apollo Crews. Satellite DDT by Carmelo Hayes. Crews taps on a crossface. So it's 1-0 for Apollo Crews. Then more Germans by Apollo Crews. Standing shooting star press. A Spanish fly DDT, which I thought was, I guess, is kind of cool. That was something where like, oh. But stuff just happens. Stuff happens in this match and everything is disjointed. There's nothing holding everything together. Trick Williams removes a turnbuckle. Carmelo Hayes gets whipped into the exposed steel. Trick tries to get involved. But then out of fucking nowhere, Babatunde shows up. Commander Aziz. Dabba-Kato. Whatever the fuck you want to call him. He shows up to help out Apollo Crews. But that distracts, does distraction stuff. And Carmelo Hayes does the guillotine leg drop for the win. So Carmelo Hayes wins, despite the fact that Apollo Crews had Babatunde, his former pal from Nigeria. How are they going to explain this? They had him run in to save the day, but he didn't save the day. So he comes in to apologize. They hug. After the match, he and Apollo Crews and Babatunde, they hug, but Babatunde turns on Apollo Crews. Turns on him in the most insignificant feud I could probably think of. Like, who cares? Who cares about Babatunde and Apollo Crews? Now they're going to try and build this as some significant friendship that it's broken apart, but we know what they're going to do with this. And I beg of you, don't buy into it. This is not good. And this is your prospect. This is the match. This is one of the matches probably leading to the WrestleMania weekend takeover. Is that what they're doing? The next takeover, Stand and Deliver, isn't that they're doing that? WrestleMania weekend? And this is what we're being confronted with? Apollo Crews and Babatunde? Come on. Look. Something that everyone had relegated to memory. A gimmick where everyone was like, this stunk. Oh, he comes back to get revenge on Apollo Crews. What's it going to be? Oh, well, Apollo, you were drafted to NXT and you reinvented yourself and you left me behind. Now I'm back to get what's mine. And then maybe Apollo Crews will finally win a feud. Who knows? This stinks, man. All of this was bad. Post-match, we don't care. This was, no, not bad, excuse me, because the guys were doing stuff, but it was boring. All of it was dull. NXT Tag Team Title 4-way match. Gallus defeated Chase U, Pretty Deadly, and The New Day to become the new NXT Tag Team Champions. Now this match already starts with a strike because I don't like multi-man matches for tag team titles. I think it's silly. And I think it distracts from people working a proper match. And on top of this, why is everyone doing tags if this is a fatal 4-way match, which is no disqualifications, no countouts? So why the hell is everyone standing around the ring waiting for tag teams? Why is it that commentary was insisting that the ref get in control of the match? Do you see what I mean about Vic? He can't guide you through this. This isn't Booker calling this. It's Vic Joseph saying, come on, ref, you got to get control. Why? The ref has no jurisdiction. It's no DQs. What he can't disqualify anyone. It doesn't matter, Vic. This is what I mean. This is a bad commentary table. This match was better than the previous two, but it was also very mid. Woods gets worked over until Kofi gets the hot tag, and this was it. You know, people were reacting. People were reacting for two things. They were reacting for the New Day because they're main roster guys, and they were reacting for Andre Chase doing things because he is from Charlotte, hometown boy. You can't get. But hang on. Kofi gets an SOS in. He gets thrown off the top to the floor. Andre Chase superplexes Pretty Brunette. Is the brunette Elton Prince and Kit Wilson is Pretty Blonde? Pretty Brunette and Pretty Blonde, right? I feel like Vince calling the jumping bomb girls back in the 90s. And when Andre Chase hits a superplex, Pretty Deadly put the funniest thing that happened in that match is when they were tossing commentary. They were moving all the shit off of the commentary table to make way to splatter someone on it. But Pretty Deadly went back to the commentary table and put everything back into its place. And that I appreciate. Here's the thing with Pretty Deadly is that they are perfect for main roster. I don't know what they're doing mucking around in NXT. This is a team that will get over on main roster because this is the kind of nonsense that WWE fans adore. And I thought this was funny because I think that, look, they're very old school in their mannerisms and how their team handles themselves and the heat that they get. And I love it. They're a throwback team and I love it. Eventually, though, Duke Hudson gets driven through commentary by Gallus. Chase does a figure 4 to a reaction because they're in Charlotte. But Gallus pins Xavier Woods for the titles. I don't remember which one. Was it Wolfgang or Mark Coffey? Here's the thing, right? Is the most uninteresting tag team in this entire match wins. The most bog standard, entry level curtain jerker WWE 3K 2K create a wrestler team wins. Why was this a four-way in the first place? Right? Most of the time, these multi-person matches are set up so that the champion won't get pinned and we can transfer the titles on to, someone else. But we can still protect the champions. Woods got pinned. The New Day lost. So why did we even do this? And on top of it, why not give the win to the hometown guy? This crowd needed something because they were dead. Dead in the water. They popped for the New Day. And whatever Kofi was doing, but this crowd needed something. I would have called the audible. I would have said, let's give it to the hometown guys. But you see, but no, we're going down this path here, and it's Gallows' turn. As opposed to, have them drop the titles on Tuesday. It doesn't matter. Like as if these titles were significant in any way. It doesn't matter. They could have changed just have them change on the next NXT, give the feel-good moment for the Charlotte crowd up on their feet, cheering for the hometown boy. They've been sitting through like 45, almost an hour of pro wrestling where nothing was happening. They sat through 23 minutes of a boring wrestling match to get into this, which was better, but it really could have ended with the hometown man winning. And then what happens? And look, even if you don't, then what happened? You have the hometown guy win, makes him look more important, right? Because the crowd is cheering, they're up on their feet. People are like, oh shit, there's something to this here. But no, WWE's greatest tradition, having the hometown guys lose in their hometown, has to continue. And then we're going to be like, oh, this was all Vince. This was all Vince. Vince is gone, right? People keep telling me Vince is not involved in creative, right? This is all Triple H and his lieutenant, Shawn Michaels. It's all one big. So Vince ain't calling the shots here. Vince ain't calling the shots. And we're still having hometown guys losing in their hometowns. Wow. NXT Women's Title Triple Threat match again. Triple Threat. Roxanne Perez defeats Toxic Attraction, the remaining members, Gigi Dolan and JC Jane. As this match started out, and I wrote in my notebook here, I wrote, how long before Gigi and JC turn on each other in this match? We'll soon find out. Anyway, double teaming stuff on Roxanne Perez. It's fine. Death press by Roxanne Perez and a springboard double arm drag. Again, nothing wrong with the work itself. JC Jane cannonball sentons off the apron but lands on Dolan. Toxic Attraction do a monologue and they're on the floor and Dolan pulls JC Jane in front of a diving Roxanne Perez. Dolan drops Perez on the apron, covers her in the ring, but JC Jane breaks up the pin, and we're officially at about 6 minutes in, and that's where Toxic Attraction go after each other. Double crossbody by Roxanne Perez. Jane puts Roxanne Perez in a tree of woe on top of Gigi Dolan and does a cannonball. Dolan sidekicks JC Jane, suplex with a bridge on Roxanne Perez. The cover's broken up by JC Jane doing a senton, which was pretty cool. They doing a spot where everyone tries to cover Roxanne. They get out a table. It wakes the crowd up. Get a code red by Roxanne Perez on Dolan on the floor. Pop rocks. Excuse me. Gigi later gets pushed off the apron through the table, and an avalanche pop rocks by Roxanne Perez for the win. Cool way to finish the match. Didn't need the table in any way, shape, or form. It's not as if this match was violent and bloody to begin with. Anyway. Look, the work was fine, but this is another match where I'm like, there's no flow to this. They're doing things. They're just doing things. And I think this, it's developmental. Okay, fine. But look, Gigi Dolan's been doing this for a while. Roxanne's been doing this for a while as well. Look, we keep getting told she's a prodigy, right? You got to be able to fill in the spots between the spots. You know what I mean? And this is my major criticism of everything that happens in NXT. Most of the stuff that happened on the show tonight, most of it is that there's these emptiness. There's no flow to the matches, and this was the problem here. They worked hard. Don't get me wrong. This is fine. Good work. JC Jane, I think was the standout of this match. And I remember JC Jane being, the third fiddle in that Toxic Attraction thing. I think, in the minds of many people she still is, but she's clearly the better worker. Hits her spots, her positioning's good. Roxanne too. Look, this was not a showcase of Roxanne Perez. They were telling their story here. Well, the story shouldn't supersede an entertaining wrestling match. And that's not exactly what we got. It was fine. It was all right. Mid. Good stuff. All right. It's like... The crowd's not into it. The crowd wasn't into anything outside of that first match. And we've talked about this in the past when the transition to 2.0 was beginning and happening. If they just turn NXT into mini main roster, there's no reason to watch this. Because the reason why you would watch NXT back in the day at its peak was because it was the work rate brand. This was the place you would turn for no nonsense pro wrestling, great wrestling matches. This was the opposite of main roster, and that's what made it interesting. That's what made it stand out. Now there's nothing that stands out here. Because it's main roster light, mini main roster, but with people who are not ready to fill these shoes. Because I'm keep being told this is developmental. And yet we start off the show with two guys who are beyond whatever developmental WWE provides. And it just steals the show. Can you steal the show if there is nothing to steal? And then the main event, steel cage NXT title match. Braun Breaker defeated Grayson Waller. And second match on the card that was dull. That committed the cardinal sin. Dull. And this one is irredeemably dull. This is not something that should happen with your champion. Your champion cannot be dull. Your champion represents your brand. He is the apex. He is the person that represents excellence on your promotion, in your brand in this circumstance. He cannot wrestle for 15 minutes while the entire audience stays sitting on their hands. Especially in a situation where you're deciding to start touring again, to bring the brand into arenas. This show was filled up. They distributed what they wanted to get out there. Irredeemably dull. This cannot be a thing. This to me, of course, was the consecration of all the suppositions that everyone had about Braun, right? He doesn't have crowd connection, right? He shouldn't be in this position. Now that we're out of the Orlando warehouse in front of a live crowd of people that need to be won over, right? Pandemic Braun was a thing, but this was his test. His test was coming. And here it is. And I think we can all say with confidence, he ain't the guy. Will he be the guy? Maybe. He's young. He's young. He's got years to go ahead of him. Braun came to prominence in NXT because people went crazy for his look on social media. We were all bored with the pandemic. We were latching on to whatever we could find to give us some spark of that spark that was missing because of the Thunderdome shows and the clap crowds in Japan and the empty arenas and all that bullshit. We were like, look, there's something missing in wrestling. Braun comes in, he has this look, he has this energy, this fervor about him. He's a Steiner. Everyone gets excited. He felt fresh. But then WWE, they clasped on to this online reaction, right? You know how they love to say, Twitter, social media doesn't guide us. Twitter, social media, and they like to make fun of all the nerds. But when something works, oh my goodness, now it's like, now we're going to pay attention. And they pushed him too quickly. They pushed him too quickly, too hard, and it turned out to be a mistake. And they've done everything to get him over. They've done everything to get Braun Breaker over. Beating up main roster guys, former NXT UK champs, guys that are perceived as being his superiors. Tyler Bate, Ilya Dragunov. Went through the gamut here. I think keeping the title on him after this match was a mistake. Clearly, they want to go the Carmelo route, right? Because Carmelo came out after the match to stare him down. But then again, Carmelo Hayes should be out of this developmental purgatory. He's outlived this. He's better than this. I like Grayson Waller. At Deadline, I thought Grayson Waller was the most complete wrestling package that was out there. He made that stip work because of his heel persona. He knows who he is. He understands his character. He is fantastic. Good, solid worker. Charismatic. We're sticking with Braun. Okay. Because they want Carmelo to beat him. Okay, I get it. I get that in story. Carmelo Hayes defeating the seemingly invincible Braun, who's got like a $7 million day reign with the title. I don't know how long it is. Whatever, right? But it's a record-breaking one, right? One of the longest. Whatever. They tried really hard. They're going to have this stat, this accolade on him for years. They tried really, really hard. And now that Carmelo's probably going to be the guy who dethrones, it has to be, right? It has to be. Otherwise, what are they doing with Carmelo Hayes? What are they doing with this guy? I have nothing to say about this match. It was boring. Boring. And I know I talked a lot about Braun, but this is on Grayson Waller too. There was no reason that this match had to be this dull. A cage match. Something that should be a blood feud, right? This is how cage matches are meant to be, these massive blow-offs. Dull. That's been Braun's MO. We got to stop now. Enough's enough. I would have put the title on Grayson Waller. I don't know. Found something else to do. Start up a little program. I am much more interested in a Carmelo Hayes, Grayson Waller program, but I think they're both heels. Is that why it wouldn't work? I don't know. Let's wrap this up. This was not a good show. This was not a good wrestling show. And anyone who tells you it was is trying to trick you. They're trying to trick you into watching it because this was not a good wrestling show. There was one really good match to open the show. It ruled. Excellent wrestlers who know what they're doing. Everything else had this weird lack of flow that just permeates everything in NXT. They had a capacity arena of people who were excited to see a large-scale NXT event, and the audience were on their hands for most of the show. They had layups, and I mean WWE, they had layups here to get the crowd invested. They had Andre Chase, a local guy, coming in to try and secure his first NXT gold. They had layups to get the crowd into it. They didn't take them. We are a far cry from the ecstatic NXT TakeOver crowds from 2017 onwards to 2020. Why? Because the work's not there. The work is not there. It's developmental, Warren. Then why are we pretending to be something else? Stay in the warehouse then. Look, it may have done good business for WWE, but as a wrestling show, it stunk. Not a good show, not recommended. Let's talk about some better wrestling shows then. New Japan had their New Beginning in Sapporo shows this past weekend. The last two big shows before we get to the big one next weekend, the New Beginning in Osaka. We got two more nights of a pretty good tour overall that I've been trying to catch here and there. A lot of matches, a lot of these shows I didn't necessarily talk about because they're not necessarily eventful shows and they don't always have marquee matches on them. Again, New Japan builds its anticipation for its matches in an entirely different way than we do in North America. They have these tours where everyone who has marquee matches fights each other, but in multi-man contexts and so on and so forth. Then little things happen to sort of build anticipation as we move forward, right? There was the Great Okan, Shingo Takagi match for the King of Pro Wrestling, for the King of Pro Wrestling belt, which was an MMA match, which I didn't like. Kevin Kelly didn't like it either. He was burying it on air. But so here, now we had 2 nights. We had 6 marquee matches, and we had some really interesting, solid cards. We're going to start by talking about the night 1. How about that? Instead of, starting by talking about night 2, which would probably confuse and befuddle a lot of you. Night 1. This was all taking place in Sapporo, Japan, at the Hokkaido Prefectural Sports Center. Good attendance on both nights. Over 3,000 both nights. We'll go with I think what I'll do is I'll talk about I'll break down the marquee matches, because there's a lot of stuff that happened in the undercard that I can mix into other things, if that makes sense. You'll see in a second. But we'll stick to the main marquee matches is what I'm trying to say here. Thank you, Warren. We had Catch 22 defending the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles against Duki and Yoshinobu Kanemaru from Just for Guys. In an excellent tag team match. Match starts off with a fantastic exchange between TJP and Kanemaru that ends with a standing corkscrew shooting star press. Doki with a pair of great dives on both members of Catch-22. Kanemaru starts working TJP's knee big time. There's an Asai moonsault by Francesco Akira. Double team senton from TJP's shoulders as well, which is always pretty cool. Kanemaru and Doki run towards a fallen TJP, but Akira just like runs in and leaps off TJP's back with a double drop kick. Just great stuff, trying to protect his buddy. TJP goes up to do the Mamba Splash, but it's avoided, and a figure four ensues by Kanemaru, who continues to work the knee. Double team move is interrupted by Doki. Get the combination X Factor by Catch-22, but TJP collapses because his knee is shot. Kanemaru's just been running it ragged. Fireplex by Akira, and TJP runs in to do a Superman pin-like move, but his knee collapses on him again. Kanemaru wraps him up into a figure four, while Akira's in a Doki choke, or a Doki chokey, like they like to say on English commentary. Akira reverses out, but eats a Widow's Peak. Instead, moonsault by Kanemaru, and another huge Widow's Peak that leads to a near fall. Double stomp on Doki. Pescado by TJP. Spitfire by Akira. Firebomb win. Excellent. Just a great match that built wonderfully, had a great story in here. And look, we're gonna have to say we're gonna have to have some harsh reality talks here, folks. Catch-22, in your boy's opinion right now, a top 5 tag team in the world today, right now. A tag team that was put together last year, 2 singles guys within the United Empire thing, 2 juniors. It's like, okay, we'll give it a try. And they have meshed so incredibly well. They are a cohesive team, tons of chemistry. And it shows in their matches, and it shows in the subtle things. In the little things, because they're always looking out for each other. They're always, but in this match here, Akira had to pull double duty. At some point, he's like, TJP is out. I got to step up. TJP can't pull off most of the things, so I've got to, and he's defending TJP's, making sure that he doesn't get overwhelmed. He had to pull double duty to even think about a chance of winning, and he did it. And that rules. It ruled. Everything psychologically in this match was fantastic. The story they told was fantastic. And we're just going to have to we're going to have to admit it. We're going to have to sit here and look at this objectively. They are a top 5 tag team in the world right now. I don't remember when I was this excited to watch junior heavyweight tag title matches. But they were fantastic during the Super Junior Tag League. They were just great. Had a good match at Wrestle Kingdom, but this was fantastic. Just absolutely amazing. Of course, you're wrestling Kanemaru here, who is he's a master in and about himself. He can do just about anything, and if there's a guy who understands how to put a match together, structure, and who athletically can still go, it's that guy. Put all these elements together. You can have whatever opinions you want about TJP personally, but there's no denying that this guy is a fantastic wrestler. And whatever he and Akira have been doing together, it is working. They are, like I said, top 5 team in the world right now. One of the most compelling to watch. And it is crazy how quickly these 2 guys have meshed into such a legitimate, memorable duo. It's just outstanding stuff. This is a great match. We're not done yet with great matches. We're going to continue with Will Ospreay defeating Taichi. Here we go. Will Ospreay back at it again, delivering great matches. Pescados early on in the match. He kicks and chops Taichi, lands a backbreaker, springboard forearm. Taichi is trying to do comebacks, but they're not working. But finally, he blocks an Oscutter, reverses it into a dangerous suplex. Chop exchange follows with some kicks as well. Taichi does some Kawada kicks and a strike. We start talking about his All Japan background. We start talking about his influence from Kawada. Taichi finally gives him control, or finally, these kicks finally gives Taichi some control, or do they? Does he get in control? He goes for a last ride, but it's reversed into a hook kick by Ospreay. Sledge to the back and an enziguri by Taichi. Get a Tiger Driver 98 by Will Ospreay and an Oscutter. Taichi kicks out. Taichi blocks another Oscutter and lifts Will Ospreay into a triple crown bomb or a Gonzo bomb, depending on what you want to call it. You know, one of these moves Kawada created via botch. This basically dropping the guy on his head. A drop kick by Taichi and a dangerous suplex follow. Poison Rana by Ospreay. Taichi nopes an Oscutter, just like watching Samoa Joe tape. He goes for a Gedo clutch. Will Ospreay kicks out. Lands a hidden blade and a dangerous suplex by Will Ospreay. Taichi fires up, but he runs into a hidden blade. There's a near fall. Some more strikes by Ospreay in full All Japan fashion. They strike at each other. Will Ospreay strikes at Taichi. Taichi will not go down. We're going down King's Road though, but he's not gonna fall. Taichi delivers a fucking forearm before Will Ospreay fires back one of his own, knocks Taichi down. The ref is counting down Taichi for a 10 count, and the crowd is ecstatic about this. They're on their feet. They're screaming. It is so cool to have these energetic Japanese crowds back. Taichi gets up, hidden blade, Stormbreaker, win. Just extraordinary stuff. Ospreay is, look, here we go again. He's second from the top on a Road 2 show. Like, you know, I'm saying that this is a marquee match. It's a marquee match on a Road 2 show, not a marquee match on the big show. And he's delivering this. He's just going all out. Taichi keeping up. Taichi, a guy who I believe every wrestling fan in the world had just like signed this guy out. It was like, nah. Just like years ago, 3-4 years ago, we're like, this Taichi guy we're good. He's washed. Zero effort. Always seem miserable. Now, he's holding his own with Ospreay. He's looking good. This has been a long-term story. If there is a guy in this company that should get flowers for overcoming perceptions, for overcoming himself at some point, this is the dude. This is the Taichi that makes him exciting to watch. This is a guy who's been like he's been the partner to some of the greats, to some of the great matches, or some great moments. Like what he and Shingo did last year with the King of Pro Wrestling. There was no reason for them to put in so much work and effort, but yet there they were, working their ass off for it. And it was great. Just a fantastic, excellent match. But then we get to the main event, and that maybe is a little more of a downer, where Tetsuya Naito defeated Shota Umino. Yeah, this wasn't it, was it? This wasn't quite it. There's some back and forth to start. Eventually, Naito tosses Umino into the barricades. Neck breaker over the barricade. He starts working him over. Combinación Cabron back in the ring. Drop kick by Umino. Starts to turn the tides, and he fires off combination of attacks. Fisherman suplex with bridge. Naito works out of a Death Rider attempt, lands some offense, and a neck breaker. Of course, always going to that neck for Destino. They slug it out, adding a spark of life to a very lifeless match so far. Tope con Hilo follows. Tope con Hilo by Shota Umino and a missile dropkick and an STF as well. Naito lands the short arm elbows and a Frankensteiner and even locks in Puma Blanca. I'm like, wait, are we getting big match Naito here? Are we going to get the Stardust Press? Umino hits an enziguri in a crossroads, hangs on to it and lands another one, but Naito hits Gloria. Destino is reversed into some kind of bastard driver by Umino, but more like leaned forward. Umino lands a backpack pile driver in Valencia by Naito. A half Death Rider connects. They sloppily do a package DDT, but Destino lands. Umino kicks out. The second one does the trick. Naito wins. I don't know. Like, look, this match was the work was fine. The work was fine. Had like, when I say that it didn't have a second gear, like it didn't. I feel like we barely got into first gear in this match. For some reason, this was not connecting with the audience, and I think a lot of, and I think Umino was. I don't think he's ready for this position yet. I think he was a little sloppy at times during this match. I don't think it's just a chemistry thing. It's, sometimes you look at two wrestlers and you're like, they just don't get it. That just doesn't work. I don't think it's just a chemistry thing. I think we talked about this in the past. With the Office, right? Bushiroad, New Japan higher ups, saying we need to. They've been saying this publicly. This is not hidden. They want to be able to get younger stars, more handsome stars, out there trained faster so that they can get out there quicker, so that they can start bringing up a new generation of stars, right? Which makes complete sense. A lot of the top guys in the company are into their 40s or pushing 40s or late 40s. There's only so much you can still get out of Hiroshi Tanahashi at this point. So, I understand that. So, there's been this talk about, we need to start pushing these young guys faster. And we saw this push happen where, sort of out of nowhere, you got Ren Narita, getting a Wrestle Kingdom title match. You get Shota Umino being thrown into the Great Muda's Kaiji Muto's final New Japan match, right? There's been talk about, letting the maybe the excursion system of the dojo, things need to be sped up, blah, 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 but at what cost are we doing this, right? At what cost is this happening? And, is this what they're trying out with Umino here? Did they put him in a sink or swim type of situation? And he didn't swim here. Well, he swam, but it wasn't pretty. It's like, so you kind of wonder at what cost are they pushing these new guys into these situations? How quickly should they be put in these high profile situations? like Fujita with TMDK, right? He's still clearly a young lion, but he's aligned with TMDK. Comes out with the boys, and he's sitting up right next to Zack Sabre Jr. at the end of the matches when they do promos, when they're sitting on the ring. He's just right up there, and he's with them. But he still has the black trunks and the black booties, and there has been talk. Like I said, are the excursions still going to happen? Well, are they? Is Fujita going to be one of these tests? Where it's like, well, let's see here. What if we don't send Fujita on excursion, but instead align him with, a solid performer here, a top guy? Zack Sabre Jr. starting up his new faction. There you go. I am not sitting here telling you Fujita's not going to go on excursion, but it's starting to, I'm seeing puzzle pieces. I don't know how they all connect, but maybe eventually they will. But I think it's telling that instead of Fujita maybe heading off to Mexico or England or wherever, the US, I think it's interesting that he's being featured prominently as a member of TMDK, despite being still a young lion. Anyway, I didn't think this was very good. The work was fine, but Umino was sloppy at some points. Clearly he's not ready for the spot yet. Not yet. Not saying that he will never be. But I feel like they're putting so much effort into him, into trying to get him over, as they were comparing him to Naito, but as a good guy Naito, where Naito's always been a rudo. He does his hair like Naito, and and he comes out through the audience, a man of the people, not unlike John Moxley, who gave him the initial rub and so on and so forth. Like, man, I don't know, man. This look, here's another guy who's young, right? And who can come up at any time. If they wanted to test him out here, they could, fine. Test out the waters, see how things go, but I didn't think he fared very well. I think it was not a good showing, and I don't think it's a question of chemistry, and I don't think it's a question of Naito, not being generous with him. He seemed to be giving. Naito's on his way to one of the biggest matches of his career to close out Kaiji Muto's career in a couple of weeks. So you'd think that he'd want to have a big stellar performance leading in. I don't know what to tell you. I just don't know what to tell you. So that was night one of the New Beginning in Sapporo. I liked it. Outside of the main event, good little show. The undercard is easy. It's easy to consume. Good little things. 10-minute matches. Nothing overstays its welcome. 2 very good matches on the upper card. I think I like night 2 a little better. I think night 2 did a little more for me. This one happened on Sunday. Again, we'll talk about the marquee matches, and the rest you'll see. I'll weave it in. You'll see. Trust me. IWGP Tag Team title match. Bishamon successfully retained their titles against TMDK. Team of Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste. Mad Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste. Little sneaky double team from TMDK. Lets them in control early on. They throw Hiroki Goto on the floor around a little. Nichols hip tosses Haste onto Goto into the ring. Goto eats a lot of shit in this match, actually, especially early on. Finally, Yoshihashi gets the hot tag, kicks and a drop kick by Shane Haste, a neck breaker and Nushigoroshi by Goto. TMDK land the tank buster on Goto, but he kicks out. Blue Thunderbomb by Nichols, but the Shoto puts them away. I thought it was a strange decision to keep the tag titles on Bishamon. This might be, I don't know how controversial a take it is, because I know a lot of people really, really like Bishamon. They really, really like Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi. They do nothing for me. And this match was solid work. You know, if we're talking Meltzer scale, a good 3.25 match, 3.5. Maybe if you're in a good mood, you know, like nothing that'll make you flip your lid. Nothing where you'll go, this stinks. But it's like, okay, this needed a second gear. This match needed a second gear. And I find that it's a constant for me when it comes to Bishamon matches. They're the constant. I'm like, the work is good, but I'm underwhelmed. The work is good, but I'm underwhelmed. You know, not unlike their match at Wrestle Kingdom with FTR, where I was expecting, the house to fall down, just tear everything apart. I'm like, oh, okay. It was what it was. And I think I was fully expecting Gedo to be like, look, I'm establishing a new faction, TMDK. We've got the one guy with the TV title. Let's give these guys the tag titles and like establish them. But no, he decided to go another route and continue down Bishamon being a thing, a tag team. I was actually very much looking forward to TMDK winning the titles, and the next thing you know, like have Aussie Open start dicking around and wanting to challenge them so that we get like to Dominion this summer maybe, and then we have Aussie Open versus TMDK. And I'd be like, all right, let's fucking go. Because I think that's the match we want. Isn't that the match we want? That would be the match I'd want. You know, in lieu of not being able to have Catch-22 come up and do things with them because they're junior heavyweights. The weight classes in New Japan annoys me sometimes. When it prevents me from having like matches that I really want to see, like Aussie Open versus Catch-22 at this point, that jars my pickles. Anyway, not a bad match, and it was like 15 minutes, and you know, it's fine. You know, it's good, solid work. Nothing to report. But, and we had a New Japan World Television title match. Zack Sabre Jr. successfully retained against Tomohiro Ishii. And this was exactly what you would have expected this match to be. And then it wasn't at the same time, and we were all better off for it. Look, Tomohiro Ishii in this match decides that, you know what? I'm bringing out my grappling game. So he's getting Zack Sabre Jr. into holds, but he's transitioning in and out of holds at the same time. And this is not what Zack was expecting. And no one was expecting this. Everyone was going, whoa! You know, you expect Ishii to come in and is like, you know, start throwing forearms and headbutts and shoulder blocking you down. You know, dropping you on your head. But no, he's working hammer locks. He does eventually shoulder block Junior down. Zack Sabre Jr. fights back. He gets a neck crank and a kick. Starts tying him up. Joint manipulation. You know the deal. You've seen a Zack Sabre Jr. match. Ties him up. Northern Lights suplex by Ishii. They get some fun back and forth until Ishii lands a back body drop. Ishii works the arm, hyperextends it. He's working the arm. He's hyperextending it. Sliding lariat on the arm. Just great stuff. Suplex by Ishii. And a PK by Junior. Ishii stomps his face to get out of an arm hold, which was great. It's just like womp, womp, womp. Ishii does a pounce. He's bleeding from the mouth. I don't know how that happened, but there's what we're doing. Goes for a powerbomb, a stack pin, and a kick out into an arm bar by Zack Sabre Jr. He locks in both arms. Ishii just reaches the ropes. He's like this close to submitting. Crowd is fucking into this. Cobra twist by Ishii. And a code red! A pop rocks by Ishii. What are we watching? What the hell is this match? Euro clutch by Junior and a kick out. In and out of Germans. Get a lariat, and then we get the call. 3 minutes are left on the match because the TV title matches are 15 minutes. Another huge lariat. 2 minutes in, a headbutt by Ishii. Crowd is on their feet. They're excited for this. Dragon suplex with bridge by Zack Sabre Jr. Strikes PK. Zack driver. It's avoided. An enziguri by Ishii. Sliding lariat reversed into a near fall. Then we get a headbutt by Ishii. A sliding lariat. But a Zack driver puts him away in the last few minutes of the match. Just great stuff. A sprint is what this was. And I'm telling you, look, I was skeptical when they decided to put the title on Zack Sabre Jr., not because he's a bad wrestler, all the opposite. You know, Zack Sabre Jr. is fantastic. But I was like, isn't this the idea they had created the title for it to showcase young and upcoming talent, right? Zack Sabre Jr. is not any young and up-and-comer. So when he was paired with Ren Narita at Wrestle Kingdom, I was like, okay, well, there we go. I was like, is this what we're going to do? But look, if Zack is going to give us, is going to be privy to these sprints with excellent pro wrestlers like Tomohiro Ishii, and we're going to have a conversation at some point regarding Tomohiro Ishii, you know, as much as, you know, and I remember last year, not last year's G1, the G1 before that, where I was like, man, how much does Ishii still have left? He doesn't have that spark. He's not the MVP anymore. Then he comes in the G1 this year, and he's having incredible matches, and he crosses the ocean, and he's having incredible matches in North America, incredible matches on AEW with Chris Jericho, with Eddie Kingston, and then he's going all over and you know what? This guy doesn't care if he wins or loses. He just wants to wrestle. He wants to beat the shit out of people. That's what he wants to do, and he wants to get paid doing it, of course. He wants to come to the US and have some in and out, and then go back home, and then do it some more. This guy is still operating on an insane level and going through these. An Ishii match is still a quality, guaranteed match. This match ruled. There's nothing else to say. This was fantastic. And the cool thing is, it's a New Japan television title match, which means it's available for free everywhere. It's available for free on New Japan World, on New Japan's YouTube channel, and on their social media. Like it's available everywhere. All the TV title defenses are free. Go check this out. You're gonna have a good time. You're going to have a very good time. I watched this after I watched NXT Vengeance Day on Sunday, and I watched this after. Talk about a palate cleanser. And that wasn't even the main event. The main event, IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, champion Hiromu Takahashi successfully retained against Yo in a match which was excellent, had me up out of my seat. It's a match of the year for your boy. The juniors are back. Fast exchange between the two with misdirections aplenty. Ends with a drop toe hold and a basement drop kick by Yo. They fight on the floor. Takahashi hangs Yo over the top rope and he launches him into the barricades as well. Suplex on the ramp. He's just going, he's like, yeah, I'm going to hurt you. Back in the ring, Yo fights back, lands a drop kick. Tope con Hilo follows, missile drop kick. Pop-up powerbomb by Takahashi, followed by a Falcon Arrow by Yo, just in and out. Great stuff. Takahashi hits a hesitation drop kick. Goes back, runs towards Yo, but Yo lands a drop kick to the knee. Now the story here is that on the night before, on night 1 of the Sapporo show, there was a multi-man match between LIJ and Chaos guys. And Yo, after the match, went after Tanahashi's knee. Just started drop kicking it, twisting it, putting it into bars. It's like, I'm going to soften this. So now, what does he do tonight? Goes right for it. He has an opening, he takes it, and that turns the tides here. He gets a figure 4 in. Figure 4 in a dramatic... Look, Hiromu Takahashi is one of the most compelling, dramatic cells when it comes to powering out of submissions. This was an epic struggle to reach the ropes, to break up the hold. It was just fantastic. They're in and out of move attempts on each other until Hiromu lands a headbutt, a German, that fires Yo up, who hits a lariat. Takahashi takes him down. He drives Yo into the corner, super kick. He runs the ropes, lariat by Yo. Yo traps the arms and lays in some forearms. That was great. Like that was so cool and very violent from Yo. Because there was no way for Hiromu to protect himself. It was great. He goes back to the knee though. Takahashi fights out, but he gets into a single leg by Yo. Takahashi strikes. Yo won't let go of the single leg. Goes for a dragon screw, but no. Hiromu rolls through the motion into a near fall attempt. Beautiful. Lands a victory royale, a poison rana by Yo, super kick into a near fall. Yo hits the drop the needle, dragon suplex into a bridge. Direct drive is avoided by Takahashi, who rolls through, and up on his shoulders goes Yo for a time bomb, but Yo fights out of the time bomb too with his leg. He's up there and he's just like pummeling Takahashi with his leg. Another direct drive is avoided. Stunner by Takahashi, but he hangs on to the stunner and gets him into a double underhook pile driver, like a butterfly pile driver, a glam slam, I guess. No, not a glam slam because it's a pile driver. Super close near fall. I was up out of my seat. Strikes and a lariat by Hiromu, who finally hits the time bomb 2 for the win. Go out of your way to watch this. This was excellent. This is the hardest I've seen Hiromu work in a while. This was excellent work. And if this was his sell for his big All-Star Junior Festival that's coming up in March, if he was like, look, I'm going to go out there because my name is on this card. I'm putting this show together. I got to show that the juniors are going to deliver. So I'm gonna lay it out there. Good. It worked. Hiromu's special, man. Not a lot of wrestlers have that level of charisma and ability that he does. And when he decides to work, when he's just not like eating shit for the entire match and pulling out a move to win, he's still great. And Yo was remarkable, and we have to underscore this. Yo was absolutely, he is on a tear since Super Junior Tag League. He's just been on a tear. Again, 3 years ago, we're breaking up Roppongi 3K. Sho and Yo are on singles paths. Sho is having these extraordinary matches with Shingo, and everyone is like, finally, our boy Sho is getting the singles push. He is so good. He has always been the better one, and we're here in 2023. Sho is a joke. Classed in the House of Torture bullshit. And Yo is shining. Yo is shining throughout the tournament, the Super Junior Tag League tournament. He shined at Wrestle Kingdom, and he's shining in this main event in Sapporo. Excellent stuff. I think he's found a footing here. And again, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you'd be telling me about IWGP champion Yo, and I would have poo-pooed you off. Now I'm sitting here going, you might be onto something. You might be onto something. He might become, I'm not saying he's there, because I think Yo has some presentation issues, but over this tour here, he's been showing some aggression. He's been a little meaner, a little more vicious. Like attacking Hiromu after the match. That's not kosher. That's not very chaos of you. It's not very white meat babyface of you. If we can tap into that mean streak a little more, he might have something to add to his presentation. Might be something more to that. I don't know what Geto's plan is for him. He could have been just a stopgap for something else, but that guy should be on this. This guy should be on the junior show. Like, enough with Ishimori at this point. A great show, a great wrestling show, just out of nowhere. Good stuff. Good. I like this better than night one. Night one had the Ospreay match, had the Catch 22 Just for Guys match. This one here, these two matches here, match of the year. You know what? Go out of your way to watch Hiromu versus Yo. And there's no reason for you to not spend 15 minutes out of your day to watch Zack Sabre Jr. and Tomohiro Ishii. It's out there for free. You don't have to pirate it. You don't have to ask people for weird links. It's out there. So this is all leading to the New Beginning in Osaka, which is the big show next weekend, February 11, a week before my birthday. Wink, wink. It's going to take place at the Osaka Prefectural Gym, of course, in Osaka. So a lot of stuff has been happening on this tour that's leading up to this. There's only 2 true undercard multi-man matches. Then we get into things that have been built up to this point. Those are the ones where we're going to open up with Oscar Lobe and Toru Yano taking on Aaron Hanare and Great Khan. Lobe is of course, the German young lion who's starting to reminding me. He's giving me William Regal vibes. He's starting to give me William Regal vibes. Anyway, he's going to be wrestling. He's going to be taking the pin in this match here. Then we're going to have an 8-man tag. LIJ versus Hanma, Shota Umino, Tiger Mask, and Taguchi. Tiger Mask is taking the pin. Then the rest of the card. Master Wato versus Taiji Ishimori in a special singles match. So this has been brewing basically since even previous to Wrestle Kingdom, where Master Wato actually got a pinfall on Taiji Ishimori while he was IWGP, while Ishimori was IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. And this has just been, they've just been at each other since. Now, Master Wato, for all the memes and the gags and the hoo-has that I've done on his, that I've done on his behalf, here is another guy who has significantly improved over, since the tail end of the pandemic and into now. He's worked a lot with Taguchi, which I think was a good thing. He seems to have picked up quite a bit out of that. And at this point, this match compels me more than it would have been, than it should have, or that it should. Especially if we had seen this like 18 months ago. I've been like, yeah, who cares? But they've been after each other this entire tour. I'm excited to see how this is going to go. I think that, look, I think, Taiji Ishimori is great, and I like him. I think he's a little tired right now, tired in the sense that, maybe we should take a step back from him for a little bit, let other juniors get some shine. And I think Wato is one that can benefit. If this is truly like the idea of new beginnings and pushing new guys, this is one of the, he's a great candidate because he's been doing good work. I say they'll push Wato here. Then we're going to get Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kenta, another special singles match. This is one that, of course, goes back to their Wrestle Kingdom 16 match. I'm sorry if I got the numbers mixed up because wrestling events and numbers, it just doesn't stick to me. Was it Wrestle Kingdom? I'm going to check just to make sure. Wrestle Kingdom 16 that was this year. So it's Wrestle Kingdom 15. Good thing I checked. It was the match where they fought each other in a what's the word I'm looking for? They fought each other in a no DQ match with ladders and everything, and it didn't go quite well. And Kenta ended up like splitting his back. He had to go through surgery. He still has an enormous scar on this back, and it hasn't really been settled since. So off of the heat from that situation, Tanahashi and Kenta are going to go at it again. This time around, it's not no DQ. We're going to see how this all turns out. Again, they've been sniping at each other throughout the entire tour. It should be fun. I mean, it's not going to, I don't think it's going to tear the house down or anything, but these are, two guys, two top level gentlemen. No reason for them not to pull out their best effort here, put their best foot forward. There's a lot of that's going on in Japan right now, right? A lot of the guys are motivated. They're excited again because now the crowds are fuller. They're making noise. It's getting them excited again. Kenta's been a bit of a goofball. That's what he's been doing on this tour. Doing a lot of nonsense. Being spurred on by El Fantasmo. Why? Such a bad influence. It'll be interesting. We're going to get a never open weight 6-man tag team championship match, which I would absolutely skip over in a blink in this preview. But listen, it's going to be champions, the House of Torture, Evil, Yujiro Takahashi, and Sho against Minoru Suzuki, El Desperado, and Ren Narita. Now, the story here is that Minoru Suzuki and Ren Narita and El Desperado started ending up in multi-man matches together. 6-man, 8-man matches. But Narita was always very distrusting of Minoru Suzuki because he's like, look, you're Minoru Suzuki-gun. You're a scumbag, and I don't trust you. El Desperado's sort of like in the middle of those two. But Minoru Suzuki's like, no, you can trust me. And he laid down the gauntlet for Narita and was like, look, I don't want to be your leader. I'm not starting up an army. I'm not getting into this to recreate another stable. Suzuki-gun is dead. It's dead. But if you want to go straight to the top, stick with me, kid. We'll go places together. I'll take you to the top. So Narita was thinking about it, so on and so forth. And El Desperado's like, look, I'm cool too. And on the last Sapporo show in the undercard, Narita officially aligned himself with Suzuki and Desperado, to a big reaction from the crowd. And what's cool here is that, even if Suzuki and Desperado aren't in Suzuki-gun anymore, they're still friends. See, they're still pals. There's an alliance there, some trust. You can tell, they have the chemistry and so on and so forth. But, it's not just because the stable has been split up doesn't mean that they all have to go their separate ways and do things individually. And I like that. I think that's interesting. And this is a little wrinkle in Ren Narita's development that I was not expecting. And I was not expecting Minoru Suzuki to be a part of it. So I'm digging this. I enjoy this. The only thing that bums me out is Desperado being in an open weight 6-man thing. But, give him something to do in the meantime while waiting for something a little more substantial, I guess. That's just me talking. As for the House of Torture, well, the House of Torture is fucking nonsense, as we all know. But the nonsense that they're doing here is that they're saying that they retired the titles. They've retired the open weight 6-man tag team titles. So they're not going to be on the line in Osaka. So, and everyone on commentary is like, what are you saying? But Evil said, no, we retired them so we can fight, but it's not going to be for the titles because they've been retired. So, look, I'm not putting too much stock into this because it's a fucking House of Torture match. And that's exactly what they are. They're torture. Hikuleo takes on Jay White. The loser leaves the Japan match. The big one. This is not going to be a great match because Hikuleo is so green. He's still so incredibly green. This is, and we saw during the tour with his, what he was doing on the tour in tag team matches where you're supposed to which should mask a lot of your shortcomings. Hikuleo, you look at Hikuleo, he's not quite there yet, is he? He's not quite there yet. Jay's going to do his damn best. There's going to be a lot of stalling here. It's going to be a Jay White character match. This is not going to be your work rate phenom. This is not going to be, it's not going to be on anyone's match of the year list. I don't reckon. But the stakes here are what's important. This is a story match. Jay White, of course, wants to since he lost at Wrestle Kingdom, he has lost the World Heavyweight title. He has focused all of his anger and bitterness and resentment towards Hikuleo, saying, from the moment you left Bullet Club, everything started going downhill for me. This is your fault. So he says, you took away what was most precious to me. And this is very much Jay White delusion, right? Of course. You took away what was most precious to me. I'm going to take away what's most precious to you. The possibility of working here in Japan, a country you love, with your family. I'm going to take all of that away from you. Loser leaves Japan. Not loser leaves New Japan. I don't think anyone's leaving the territory. And I think this is the wrinkle here. Look, I've said it. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised in the slightest if Jay White were to leave Japan and work in North America, the United States, for an extended period of time. What are we going to do with Jay White again in Japan now? We're not going to run him in Naito again. We're not going to run him in Okada again. We're not going to, it's like, I think this will be a proper refresher. Goes to the US and he can work. Look, Jay White has worked all over the place in the US and he can do it again. Maybe there's even a little more room for him, a little more room for him on the AEW side this time around. Maybe there's a little more something there. He can come collect paychecks here. He can work the indies. He can go to Impact. He can do all sorts of stuff. Or he could just work the New Japan shows in North America. By the way, there's one coming up in February as well. Don't know if you heard. Like, whatever happens, I really don't think that we're getting into a situation where Jay White is leaving New Japan. This rumor comes up every year for the past 3 to 4 years. Every year, like clockwork, Jay White's contract news, and is he going to be in the Royal Rumble and all that stuff. Don't forget when Hikuleo and Jay White had announced that they were going to have a loser leaves Japan match. Next thing you know, the media is reporting that WWE has expressed interest in Hikuleo. And a couple of days later, all of a sudden, there's Jay White. They've expressed interest in bringing Jay White over. Of course they have, though. Like, of course. You're a wrestling company. You want the top guys in the world. Jay White. What are we talking about? I think Hikuleo wins. It's either one of two things. Either he's really going to WWE, Hikuleo is, which I think he'd fit in well in NXT. I think he'd be fine there. Or he wins, he stays in Japan, but Jay White goes to the US for an extended period. And it's all story. They'll figure out a way to bring him back if they need him. What are we doing? Like, they've been talking about power vacuums in Bullet Club if he's gone. Never Openweight Championship is going to be on the line. Tama Tonga's having his first defense against El Fantasmo. Should be a good time. I love El Fantasmo. I keep telling you guys, gals, non-binary pals, keep your eyes on El Fantasmo. He's a future Bullet Club leader. I'm convinced. Bullet Club sticks around that long. But, like, he is going to be a player. He's going to be a top guy. And New Japan sees him that way. It should be fine. It should be a lot of fun. Energetic, El Fantasmo playing the shit heel. Tama Tonga getting his explosive babyface comebacks. It'll work. And then the main event, Kazuchika Okada will defend his newly acquired IWGP World Heavyweight Championship against Shingo Takagi. What else is there to say? This match is going to rule. It's going to rule. Two of the best in the world to do it. Two of my favorite wrestlers. I'm here for this. Of course, Okada's retaining. Of course, Kazuchika Okada is retaining. And yes, I will throw my voice into the Shingo deserves a world title run because for what he did during the pandemic, he was the pandemic champion and he deserves a full crowd. And he really does. It's not good. Kazu's not losing on his first defense. What are we even talking about? That's not a thing. That's not going to happen. Especially not going into the match against Kato Kiyomiya in a couple of weeks. 13 days. He's not losing. There's no way. This is all telegraphed, unfortunately. But you know what? This is one of these matches where it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. The Titanic sinks at the end. But that's a bad comparison. Because this will be better than a ship sinking. What's a good comparison where you can be like, oh yeah, the destination, everyone sees it coming, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Oh, well, there you have it, folks. that's what's coming up with New Japan this weekend, and some great matches and some. Look, Apero is back, baby. I don't know what to tell you. It's feeling good again. I'm excited. That was the weekly wrestling inspection. Well, folks, we're going to wrap this up for this week. Another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show in the can. I want to thank everyone who tuned in live on YouTube. Well, excuse me, who tuned in on YouTube for the premiere of this recording of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you very much for being here. And if you're watching this on demand, thank you as well. I appreciate it a great deal. Consider leaving a like if you haven't already. Consider subscribing as well if you enjoyed what just happened here, because then you'll never miss a thing. I will be, and of course, thank you everyone who's listening on your favorite podcast application. 5-star on Apple, 5-star on Spotify. Don't forget, I will be back on Thursday at some point with the AEW Dynamite report. Otherwise, review. It's more than a report. I give you what I think. It's a review. Jeez, what are we doing? But yeah, so I'll be back next Thursday. Otherwise, I will be back next Tuesday, most likely, for a brand new live recording of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. In the meantime, thank you all for joining me. I am the best D-list podcaster with the A+ audience, and I will see you next time.